Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
A simple life is over. I want to live in an old folks' home.
我又有時間健健康康咁照顧返佢 timing 非常好。
This is a big day, Andy.
Is it?
Big day. Because this is one of our grand crossover episodes. You might call this a very special episode of VSE.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Because
we're crossing over. This is A Simple Life. We're talking about A Simple Life that was released in 2011. 10-year anniversary. It is also a film directed by Ann Hui.
That's correct.
Which kicks off our next series, Ann Hui.
Kicks off with a little break in between because, we have a Christmas episode that we're
right.
in.
We do have the Christmas episode coming up. That's right. I did forget about that. Ann Hui was not involved in Arthur Christmas, as far as we know.
As far as we know.
Maybe inspired by.
Maybe that's it. Maybe she was the inspiration.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I'm sure that's what happened. And so we're doing this Ann Hui thing. So with all due respect to Arthur Christmas, how'd we end up with this particular movie?
Ann Hui is a director that I think caught our eye as far as the types of stories that she tells. She's a Hong Kong filmmaker who has been directing films since the late 70s. And I mean, has, 30 films under her belt that she has directed, all or at least part of, in some that were like, she directed a segment types of films. Very busy filmmaker. And I think that we looked at the types of films that she told. We read through the list. The tricky thing is, honestly, not a lot of her films were available. And so as we were looking to films to include in the Ann Hui series, we kind of ran into a thing where we're like, okay, well, let's see which ones are available, because a lot of them sound really interesting, but just aren't readily accessible over here in the States, which is frustrating. And so we found some that were, and kind of read through the different synopses of those. And we landed on a number of them, including this one that came out in 2011. And because of that, we thought this would be a good crossover episode between our 10-year anniversaries series and the Ann Hui series. Even though, this is, essentially going to be out of order, because after this, we'll jump back in time and then we'll walk through some of her earlier films before we end that series. So, she's a filmmaker who I really didn't know much about, but as I was reading about her, I just found she sounded like the type of storyteller that I can really enjoy, somebody who tells more intimate, quiet types of stories. And so I thought she would be a good fit for our conversations this season.
I think that you liked this movie very much. I think that it is exactly what you just said, piqued your interest. Quiet, small story. I think you watched this movie with rapt attention at their relationship, and I also think you're going to give special attention to our man Andy Lau. I think you really liked his performance in particular. That's what I think you thought of this movie. Now, where do you put it on the star rating? I think you're going to give it a 4.
I will just say he does have a great name,
Lau. You're right. It's fascinating. What do you think I thought of this movie?
You're a turd. I think you found it to be an interesting story about kind of what it's like in this period of life, about when you're close to the end, and then also the way that the system treats you. And so I think that you found it interesting. I don't think you were as enthralled by the film and the quieter type of story, but I think that you enjoyed it well enough.
Enjoyed it well enough. I think that's, wait a minute. Yeah, it was on the poster. I enjoyed it well enough. Roger Ebert.
Oh, wow. This film was not rated when it was released here in the States. And, I think if anything, it would be rated, PG. There are some elderly people being taken to the hospital and things like that, but it's pretty mild film.
People die quietly, mostly off screen.
Yes. You want to watch this movie and help us out? Well, if you see an Apple or an Amazon link to this movie in the show notes, you can click on it and it will take you right to their site, and you can rent or buy the movie. When you do this, we get a little piece in return. Win-win.
Check out the merch. As you listen to this, it's the holiday season. Maybe you need to pick up a last-minute gift for somebody. You should head over to truestory.fm/TNR merch and pick up a logo, something or other, or a shirt with an animal on it. It might even be a cat with no ears by the time you hear this. I don't know. Could be. We're kind of trying to come up with more and more of these merch opportunities with every series that we do. So truestory.fm/TNR merch.
We are featuring audio reviews from you, our dear listener. Just send us your 30-second audio file to reviews@truestory.fm. As soon as you watch the film, We just might showcase your voice on the show. Get them in quick, though. We record early, so the sooner you get your clip in, the more likely it will end up in the podcast. Again, that's reviews at truestory.fm.
And if you're wondering where you can see the movies that we're talking about in the upcoming weeks, so you can get that review in on time, head over to our Letterboxd HQ page at thenextreel.com/letterboxd. And you can see all of our watch lists. You can see all the series breakdowns that we're doing. You can see the movies that are coming up in our schedule and get them on your own watch list so you can get your reviews in on time. And while you're there, you can sign up for a pro or patron membership if you just are loving Letterboxd and you want to remove ads and support a fantastic team. Get 20% off. Just visit thenextreel.com/letterboxd. It'll take you straight to the sign-up page where it'll already apply that 20% off discount, and it works for renewals as well.
And hey, if you are looking to show your support of this independent podcast during the holiday season, what better way than by signing up to become a member? Have you heard of Patreon? We basically are using Patreon, but it's their other platform called Memberful, which integrates the membership platform right into our own site. You just go to our website, click to become a member, and essentially you're becoming a patron of our podcast. And we'd love it if you would consider becoming a member either month to month or at the annual rate and get all sorts of goodies.
So many goodies. Members get access to every episode. They also get access to bonus episodes. There are so many bonus episodes. There's a member bonus episode that fills a gap from one of our series. Members get to vote on what we're talking about. Members get wrap-up episodes called retakes that we do at the end of every series. I mean, I can't even catalog the bonus episodes in this ad read. There's just too many. There are not words to describe how many episodes we have that are bonus.
That's right. Just head to truestory.fm/TNR membership, and you can learn more about our different membership tiers. The most it'll cost is $5 a month or $55 a year.
Wow. This movie. There are so many things going on in this movie, and it's so deceptively simple for me, A Simple Life. Or deceptively complex is what I meant to say there. This movie, A Simple Life.
It was deceptively simple.
Deceptively simple, even though
it seemed like a Sherlock Holmes mystery, but wow, was it simple.
It's such a relationship thing. It's really, principally centers around these two people. They are not related. She was the family maid and caretaker for 60 years. 60 years. That's so many years. What did she start when she was 7?
Well, that's what was so funny, because just to interrupt real quick, but somebody asks, because he's posing as her godson in this place, just to make it easier for them to talk about. And he says she was with us for 60 years. And they're like, wow, how old is she? At least 70. So, did she start when she was 10? Apparently he thinks so.
Well, and that is actually a funny angle since you brought it up. They do the pose as godmother thing, but then later he takes her to the premiere of one of his movies and he calls her his aunt. And I think that's a really interesting cultural statement that I don't understand completely. This whole idea of feigning family relationships to ease social demands. I didn't understand why godmother and aunt here were better as relationships than she was my nanny. She was my caretaker.
Well, because
does that make any sense?
I don't think that she was, in terms of how they describe it in the film. They never say that. They say she's the maid. And that's the only word in the film, in the translation at least, that we read in English, that they ever call her is the maid. Even though she essentially is kind of a nanny. But I do think what that leads to is not only this discussion about kind of getting old and caretakers and taking care of the different people in your life, whether they're the young child that you're taking care of or when they get old, then you're taking care of them as an old person, but also this class structure, because as the maid, she is never viewed as anything more than just the maid. And I think that is part of the reason why he says, yeah, or somebody says, is this your godson? And they're like, yeah, oh yeah, I'm her godson. Because no one would ever expect someone to take care of their maid like that. No one would ever expect to bring their maid to a premiere. Even if it was your nanny, it probably still would be something that people would kind of look at side-eyed, And so I think there's an interesting element there about this family, and really not just about the family, but really about him and how he learned to get past a lot of that as he continued taking care of her in the film.
Right. And I think that's actually really interesting, because as we get to the end, do you feel like he's learned anything about about exactly that angle? Like, do you feel like he has come to terms with exactly how important his relationship was with her in the end? Because I was just sort of musing on his arc. He plays such a stoic character, Andy Lau, as Roger. He it's often hard to get a read on him. And so charting his emotional sort of development, his arc over the course of this movie, do you ever get a sense that he's a different guy in the end than he was in the beginning?
It's tricky. It's tricky. I mean, yes, I do think so, but I think there are elements that make it a little harder to read.
Yeah, I mean, if you judge just his first scene with her, right, where he doesn't speak to her at all, and she serves him food, and then he leaves without saying goodbye, like, okay.
Doesn't say thank you. All he says is,
right.
You know what I really want is ox tongue. Cook me up some ox tongue, and like that's kind of his attitude. Is just, it's very much, she's the servant, and he treats her as such. And even when he comes home and he forgot his keys and he is ringing the doorbell, like, I have never heard anyone ring a doorbell so rudely in my life. But of course she had collapsed. And I think, yes, I mean, he definitely does make a turn, and he does kind of welcome her, and they create this relationship and this bond, and he stops looking at her just as a servant and treats her as a family member, and they have this connection, and that obviously they did have when he was a kid, but it's like a kid and somebody who's taking care of them that you don't really view that way yet. But as he got older, obviously it just became, you're the maid, you cook, and that's your job.
Right. And that's what I wanted to see him demonstrate more, if there was a shortcoming in that performance. And I have to say, obviously I like Andy Lau. I mean, we've liked Andy Lau for a long time. And he's an incredibly popular actor in terms of Hong Kong performances. He's been in like hundreds of things. He plays this so tight that it is, I think, hard. And what I wanted to see was some demonstration that at the end of her life, he was a bit of a different person. At that funeral, at that transition, like I felt like there was a real opportunity, and I didn't get it. I didn't get it. And maybe that's the point. Like, maybe I'm never really going to get it, because, there is such nuance to this performance, and to, needing to have a deeper cultural understanding of like Chinese family relationships that I don't have, that is sort of in the way of truly getting a sense of what's going on here.
Yeah, there were a couple things there that I wasn't, that I felt, I guess I wasn't sure how. I read that he did change over the course of the film. I certainly felt like there was a transition for him, even if it was kind of a subtle one, even if it was, it wasn't designed to be a maudlin sort of film. Like, they're not,
yeah,
tearing up over each other at the end of the film or anything like that. But we get this quiet reflection throughout the film of kind of him and everything. And he even starts, my impression of the open of the film, when he's getting on the train and stuff and we hear his voiceover, he's talking about, she was in my life up to 2 years ago. So I felt like, this is him having moved on past all of that. And he's just kind of reflecting on this whole thing.
Agreed. Well, and I think that there is, there's, if I'm going to read that, and I think this is an important piece for me, and just in how I watch the movie, the movie centers, his transformation centers much more in what he does, not how he does it, right? Like, as you say, it's not a maudlin film, but everything that he does demonstrates some connection to, to her, to Ah Tao, in a way that is growing, right? Taking on renovating the apartment, taking on bringing family in to see her having I really loved the scene where he gets all of his high school buddies as they're eating the ox tongue to
Right.
to get on speakerphone and sing her the song together. And that is if to me, that's one of there are a couple of elements of points in this movie that cause me to sort of spontaneously tear up, right? I didn't see it coming. The movie is moving at a pretty slow pace, and yet then I see the way Andy Lau sits there and listens and watches his friends sing to Ah Tao on speakerphone, and I'm like, oh my God. That's one of those incredibly special moments in the movie for me that I think demonstrates the what he's doing and how he's doing it in a little beautiful gem of a scene.
Well, and hearing how obviously all of these things affected her, because she can remember their names and these moments. So even as kids and stuff, they don't really think about, as I was saying, they don't think about that sort of stuff. It's there. But it obviously was a part of her life. And it's like he's realizing how much a part of her life all of them were. And that I thought was so interesting. And that's why I thought the moments with the family at the end where she gets to come and, she's still alive, as we find out after, she had, 2 strokes and emphysema, but she's okay. And she's survived, and she's with them at Jason's, Roger's brother's, kids. I was assuming it was first birthday or something. So she obviously lived a while longer and was around to enjoy them. And moments where I thought it really stuck that he did move past the point where he just viewed her as a servant and really saw her as part of their family was, he brought her there. And I mean, other people were like, yeah, get in the picture with us. But he's the one who wheels her in the wheelchair and puts her in the family photo, even though she was like, no. But it's he made sure to include her. And so I definitely think that he does stop viewing her that way as just a servant and really sees her as an integral part of their family. And everything. And so those moments, I think, are important and, definitely, I think, important ones for the film and for the story.
I do too. And I think there's the conflict of the film for me is just how she continues to make the case scene after scene not to make a fuss over her. That she's done. She's an old lady. Don't worry about it. I want to go to an old folks home. I just want to ride out the end of my life, as if she is experiencing end of life fatigue. She's done. She does get joy in those moments. You can tell because Deannie Ip is an amazing performer. But I do get a sense that conflict for her is just let me go. There is some of that let me go. I'm finished, and that was hard to watch.
It's interesting. I don't think I really got her saying I'm finished. I got her. I don't know. Again, I think it's the mentality that she's had her whole life of 60 years being a maid, and she
don't fuss over me. It's not my job. It's not your job. My job is to fuss over you. Yeah.
Exactly, and that's what she says to the mom when the mom was talking about how she was, I can't remember what it was, but mom came and fussed over her when she was in the hospital or something, and she's like, "Well, you're not supposed to do that. That's my job to take care of you," and so. Yeah, I think that she has a hard time accepting that sort of thing. She has a hard time accepting gifts. She has a hard time accepting money. Unless there's some sort of reciprocal sort of thing. She just has a hard time with that. And yeah, it's hard for her to be fussed over and be focused on. And I think that she probably could have gone to celebrate New Year's with that other family from the nursing home who had invited her to join them.
Right.
But again, it's just she doesn't, instead she just spends it alone. But I felt like it was, she felt like I'm the one who's supposed to be sitting here in my room by myself while, making sure that you're out there having fun. And
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's an interesting perspective to kind of get that read from her.
Yeah, I think I do. I think so. I think she's this is what I mean, how it hit me in sort of a complex way. It was easy for me to relate to that experience of what she was doing. I totally hear what you're saying about that. She doesn't want to be fussed over. And to me, how easy it was to read that as, she just recognizes that her life is coming to an end, and she's doing a I don't know, wants to try and do sort of a gentle handoff in a way that isn't necessarily satisfying to her. And you can see this when she goes into the actual elder care system, when she finds, when Roger finds a place, connected to one of his friends and former, it sounds like coworkers, actor in some of his films or something, ends up going to this place. The entire elder care system is abusive, I think, right? Just in terms of resources that they have available, the way they have built this system. And I think Hui does an amazing job for me setting up the world inside this facility. The sort of machine-based, I say machines, that's not what I mean. Oh, conveyor belt-based sort of people on like nurses or caregivers on rolling chairs, feeding people in their seats who can't feed themselves, sliding from one to the next, like on a conveyor belt. Like those sorts of sequences made it look like not friendly at all. Like it was just very much, these people are here to the end, and we're going to do our best, and we all recognize that our best isn't really that great.
I was a little torn with how the film set all that up and played it throughout the film. And I guess it's one of those things where over the course of the film, we get a sense of this is how the system is set up. But by the end, I'm like, I think there are elements of it that are working the way they are because they need to. Because initially, like when Roger is first talking to the woman there, trying to get a sense of it and looking at a sample bill and the line items and stuff. And he's just like, you charge for this, you charge for that, you charge for this, you charge for that. Like, what is all this stuff that you're charging for? And she's trying to explain to him, but it really comes across like, oh yeah, we are totally taking advantage of all these people for all the money we can. And he seems very suspicious of it and really like changes his tune instantly as soon as he finds out that his old, film friend is running the place and gives him a discount. But I'm like, well, but you're still putting her here, and so you're just going to go along with that kind of abusive type of system. What's that saying? And I wasn't sure, because then she was in it, and instantly it seems like she wants out. But then all of a sudden she seems really comfortable with it, and it really starts seeming like it's okay. Yes, I mean they may be overcharging all this stuff, but they are actually taking care of the people, and everyone seems to be, relatively doing a good, surviving and doing okay. And it's interesting where you start seeing that a lot of people end up in here because their family just doesn't want to deal with them anymore. And sometimes in the case of the brother and sister who are mutually supposed to be taking care of their mother, only the sister ever shows up. Only the sister actually pays her half. And that was an interesting element. There's that woman who the head lady said, she's been here since the beginning. We've never seen a person come for her. She's fully subsidized by the government. And you start realizing that, I mean, it's a system that does kind of take advantage of people, but it's also doing a good job of actually taking care of these people. And so it was an interesting, I wasn't quite sure about the way that it's set up initially. I'm like, am I supposed to be hating this place or liking it and feeling like it's okay? And I wasn't really sure, but I don't know. Where was your read on that whole thing?
I never felt like I liked the place. I felt like this was much more of a statement on, to your point, like this place exists because we have an aging population that is massive here, and we don't know any other way to do the kind of stuff that we do because there aren't enough people to take care of the massive number of people who can't take care of themselves. Like we have to, like we as human beings have not figured out a way to do this humanely and to do it in a way that doesn't look like our single rooms are actually cubicles in an office. Like it just doesn't look great, and we don't know how to do it any different. And the fact that the two people who own the place, the husband and wife, the friend and the woman, have no experience in taking care of the
Right.
elderly, right? They just were looking at it as a business opportunity.
It's a cash cow, right?
It's a cash cow, and their business is good. Is a testament to that. And I don't think Hong Kong is not is not an isolated story here. You don't have to spit very far to hit a story of these kinds of facilities springing up all around the world because nobody knows how to take care of the elderly. And because the people who are making those decisions aren't elderly yet, they don't have the level of empathy, sympathy, right? To actually be that caregiver, the caregiver that they themselves would want in 30, 40, 50 years. And that is, I think, a statement here. There is no overt abuse of the elderly here, right? It is that the whole system is abusive just the way it exists from to my eye, right? That is what I walked away with seeing, that she was fit into this system. It wasn't like she could have necessarily found a better one had they just looked further. I think it was a relationship of convenience because of his relationship with this guy, but they're 6 of one, half dozen of the other, and she just plays her part in the system.
Yeah. Well, and again, she's trained to not complain.
Exactly.
That's kind of her thing.
Trained to not complain.
But it's funny because I never found it abusive other than financially. Like their whole abuse seems to be taking advantage of the people who have to pay the bills. And but like inside the system, like, I mean, they seemed to be doing a good job of taking care of the people. Like I never felt like they were pointing out examples of moments where people were not getting taken care of properly.
Well, what is not being taken care of properly? I mean, it just felt like such a machine to me that they were just like, they might as well have been in the Matrix, like battery pods, just like plug them in and do this thing. Like there was not, there was limited sort of, I don't know. Would you want to live there? Like, is that how you want to write out your days? Because we can make that happen.
Thanks. You're sweet. I'm not saying that I'm saying in context of, families who don't want to take care of their elders and are put into these systems. I think that, they're doing a good enough job. Like they set it up like, we put name tags on your stuff, but hey, if it disappears, it's not our fault. But nothing ever gets taken. Like, I don't feel like I don't see actual things happening that made me feel bad. I mean, I see old people who are sad because they are left behind. But, they bring in all these pets for this remedial pet day where all the elderly people get to play with animals. They have a very strange performance of people who do this performance, give everybody a treat and then take them away because they have to go to somewhere else. But then they have all these kids come in, like they're doing things, and it's open. Like people, they can leave and they can come back. It's not like they are trapped in this place. And so I felt like they could have done a lot more to show us a place that felt more abusive. It felt like it's a sad place because people are left here until they die. But I never felt like it was a place that was intentionally not taking care of people in a way where, they like, I hear so many more horror stories of seniors, being taken advantage of in these types of places, like left in the rooms, diapers not getting changed, things like that. And this film wasn't about any of that. So I felt it was sad, but I didn't feel it was pointing out an abusive system.
Well, and that's what I mean. That's what I feel like I said that. Like, there is no overt abuse in this movie, but the whole system is. And I used the word abusive because the whole system is just made to take old people and put them in a machine to make money. No There was nobody left in a chair. There was nobody we never saw anybody not getting their basic needs met. But that's not the way I want to live out the end of my life, right? Like that is a system under strain to me, and I think that's what she's going for here. That this is a system under strain, and it's sad. It's not necessarily kind, and nobody in here. I think that the woman who is singing is the perfect example of the entire infrastructure, because she's singing, she has a smile on her face, and when she leaves, she walks out of the little center to go get a drink, and the look on her face goes from I love what I do to I can't believe I'm here. This is the worst thing I've ever done, right? It's just, you can tell by the look on her face that she doesn't want to be there. Nobody wants to be there. There's one person who seems like she is a caregiver that wants to actually be in place, and I can't remember what her name was, but she had the glasses. And then she says, I kind of would like to go work for Roger, right? He needs it now that the maid is here. I would love to go work for him. And she's talking to the maid.
Yeah. I mean, it's I don't know. I guess it's a sad place, but it's, I do feel that it's a part of life, and I don't think that it's designed to show abuse as much as, it's kind of the place that people, end up with. And I guess the story that I find interesting is that, we're really following Ah Tao as she's here. She finds comfort there. She finds friendship there. She, it's a place that's, for her, it might be a little lonely and things like that, but she has Roger coming in, and I guess that's the thing I find so heartwarming, and obviously other people do too. The fact that he shows up, it's not all the time. He's always off making movies and stuff like that.
Right.
But he shows up, and people are always like, you're so lucky to have him coming as often as he does, and taking her out and treating her well. And that's, really that's the story, is that by putting her there in a way, it helps him kind of develop this familial relationship with her, where he is kind of taking care of her and helping her out, and taking her out to get fish and things like that, and doing stuff for her that I found so touching, because it really was his chance to find that place of kind of connection and warmth with her that he had kind of forgotten, I guess.
Yeah, and that I think is a major sort of theme, the whole sort of family not family that exists in that place. The fact that he discovers the just how close he was to her, and didn't even see it while he was under her care as she was his maid, I thought was really special. Like, he sort of comes to term again by the things he does, not how he's doing it. I thought it was really special. And again, to your point, the community that she sort of finds herself in, thanks very much to Uncle Kin, as a weird sort of mooch, and yet the guy who creates a lot of spontaneous just sort of love in the place, I think was really great. Like, you watch those sort of friendships kind of blossom, and so again, this exists kind of in conflict to the world that they're living in. For me, that it is a sad place, and yet they're finding little sprouts of hope. And I think Hui does an amazing job of presenting these just sort of opposite ends of this particular spectrum really well. And I got it again at the very end during the funeral, when Uncle Kin shows up, right? And he goes in to the service, and there aren't very many people there, and all heads turn, and they're all young faces, right? They're all such younger faces. There's, I think, one or two elderly people in the front, but
from the nursing home. Yeah,
from the nursing home. But he is standing up as this example of, like, everybody in here is going to be where I am, and where these other two lovely people from the nursing home were, and where this person in the box just came from. Like, we are all going there. And I think that presents this sort of unspoken central question for me, which is, how do you want to wrap up the third act of your life? Like, that is for me, the major theme here of how do we want to end? Like, how do we want to end with joy? How do we go about finding joy in our final act?
That's interesting, especially in context of the title of the film, A Simple Life, and like what is Hui really kind of giving us with just by titling the film that? Is it the sense that what Ah Tao really wanted was to have a simple life? Had she had a simple life, this is bringing a simple life to a close? Is it Roger who has the simple life? Or do we all really, in the end, just kind of have a simple life? And, really what it's all about is just trying to find connection and happiness. And, I found the title as I thought about it. I'm like, it's interesting that that's what it's titled, because I'm not sure if any of us really have anything more than a simple life or more than a complex life. Like, life is life, and it's a very interesting ride that we all go on. But in the end, it is those people at your funeral. Like, those are the connections that you made in your life. And like, what's it all about, Alfie, right?
What's it all about, Alfie?
Not a great person to bring into the conversation.
Yeah,
here.
probably not.
Yeah.
Complex.
I know. A couple of the things, though, that I do think are interesting to talk about in relation to Roger and being rich, and the idea of how you treat other people. Something that I felt like was being set up was in context of his relationship with Ah Tao and how he evolved that relationship. I felt like, was there going to be learning here? Because we see him. There's that great scene where he, who is, he's a film producer producing schlocky crap. And he's with his filmmakers trying to essentially get more money out of one of the financiers. And they kind of trick him. And then they all go out to eat afterward. And then one of the guys that he's with is just so rude to the wait staff there. Like, I'm just like, God, this is terrible how they are. And later, he essentially is the same way when he takes Ah Tao out for some fish. And he's just not very polite. And I felt like, okay, like, would it have helped me feel like he really did grow more if, like, later in the film we see him eating and he's a little more kind to the wait staff? Like, is that something that would have helped at all? I don't know. Did you have any thoughts on that as it's played?
Absolutely. That I think is a great example of, I think, the risk of playing the character the way he played it, and the way in this case it was written. Like, he doesn't have an opportunity, I think, or enough of an opportunity to demonstrate that growth over time. So you have to take, I think, a lot for granted that his relationship may be changing under the surface with her specifically, but we don't get any indication that that's changing the way he lives his life. Like, is his somehow a simple life? Like, what do we aspire to based on Roger's portrayal or Roger's role in this movie?
Yeah, right.
I feel like what a great example of to get your job done. Like, you aspire to be such a high-powered film executive that you have to resort to those sorts of tricks and shenaniganry to get the job done. Like, that could be an entirely, that maybe that's the sequel. A simple
well,
life, and it's Roger's story.
Then there's the whole scene where he's like berating somebody for not doing something, not getting like a permit or something properly. And they're like, oh, you got it. Oh, well, never mind then. I misunderstood you. It's all good. It's like, geez,
right. He's just not very nice. He's not very nice.
Yeah, it's interesting the way that plays. But then there's also this whole other element that I think is worth talking about that you wrote in the notes. What does wealth look like? Because as we find out, Roger doesn't dress the part. Like, he doesn't dress like the well-off producer. And as it turns out, he dresses like an air conditioning repair guy because
right. Exactly like an air conditioning repair guy. That was so funny.
Very funny. And then apparently also like a taxi driver, which is funny because someone says, you got to move, your car's about to be towed. And he's like, do I look like a taxi driver? And then he jokingly says, I fix air conditioners, which I thought was great. But that's an interesting element to also throw into his life. The fact that here he is, this guy making movies, but he dresses apparently like, a lower class person. And I found that to be kind of another interesting element thrown in here that, it never really develops into anything. It's just, is it just saying that Roger is one who's more comfortable kind of crossing that line? Because his mother certainly didn't seem to be the sort who was more comfortable with that, but he certainly seemed less concerned about like going and visiting her in her nursing home, things like that.
Well, yeah, I feel like for him, every day is casual Friday, right? Like he's reached a point in his, in his career, and that, if you know who he is, that the guy can wear, essentially a members only jacket and t-shirt every day if he wants, and that's going to be okay. And no, he doesn't have a briefcase. He has a backpack, and that's just because he is who he is. Like, and so he's sort of wearing his authority in the form of business counterculture, and that says that has its own sort of voice in terms of who his character is, that he doesn't need to care about trappings anymore. I felt like I could relate to that. Like, I felt like in some ways he is sort of shunning some of the trappings of his field and of the sort of relationships that he has to cultivate by dressing essentially like an air conditioner repair guy.
Well, what was funny about that, and again, never really developed the way that I thought it would, or if they were going to do anything with it, is that you see when the air conditioning guy gets off the elevator and literally they're dressed in the same outfit, which was kind of funny. He does, for the first time, like seem confused, concerned, surprised, and actually seems like he's about to kind of like, he unzips his coat like, maybe I want to take this off. But then it's never like he's wearing it again. Like he doesn't change his kind of outfits. He kind of just goes back to it. So it was like a momentary recognition, but it didn't turn into something that turned into a change for him.
Well, and you do get a sense that he gets some subversive joy out of taking out his business card for the assistant, right? Like, this is my name card, and gives her a second to look at it and see his title and all of that. And that is a guy who is, who's proud of that name card, right? That's he's looking at his letterpress for that. So he is, again, not that simple of a guy, and maybe that is just yet another indicator that his backpack and jacket are confusing symbols of wealth.
There are interesting elements in context of this story where, he is, I think in terms of the blending of class structure, I don't think that he worries too much, although he doesn't ever call her his maid to any of the people that he presents, so.
Which is, if we stand by our earlier argument, a sign of respect, right? That he personally considers her a member of the family, and that he will not, he will not tell the truth because that might be a sign of disrespect, right? That's where we landed?
I don't think that that initially it felt that way. Like when they do that, it just felt like it made her, in context of her being in this place, it was more comfortable for her to not be recognized as just a maid.
Yeah.
So
and those relationships do get closer over the course of the film, right? It goes from maid, where he doesn't speak to her, and then when they go outside, it's godmother, and then it becomes aunt. Like those are closer relationships over time.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And and their conversations really, they turn into feeling very familial. Like they're jokingly, trying to hook each other up with different people and things like that. Like it really does become very intimate, family connection. And that's I think the strength where you find that strength in their relationship throughout the film. That's where you see the growth, is the way that they're having their conversations as we get toward the end of the film.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I liked it. What do you think of Ann Hui? Have you seen a bunch of other Ann Hui stuff?
No, this is my first Ann Hui. So again, I'm looking forward to jumping into this series to kind of check more of her films out. I was excited to see that the Criterion Collection recently announced that they're going to be releasing Boat People, one of the films we'll be discussing in this series. Of course, it'll be after we've recorded the episode, but still, I'm glad to see that she's getting more recognition now. So it'll be nice to see. I enjoyed the way she directed the film. Very still shots. I mean, there's movement, but a lot of the shots are very just composed, still shots. Interesting positioning of the people within the frame as we're kind of viewing them in their world. I really enjoyed that. When we jump into Roger's life, it's a little more movement, a little more handheld, shaky sort of stuff. And so I really enjoyed that feel that we get throughout the film, just the way that she's kind of crafting this very carefully.
Yeah, I did too. I felt like that first scene in sort of the opening montage of Roger moving through the city. There's a part where he's kind of sleeping in a chair in like a train station.
Yeah.
And the way the shot is framed, it's isolated on this giant mural on the wall in this train station, and he is off to the lower left corner of the frame. And I was like viscerally struck by that shot. Like it was like, oh, Ann Hui is going to be somebody to pay attention to for me. Like she's a capable filmmaker with quite an eye for the simplest shots, making them, really taking into account size and space in a way to really catch the eye and demand attention. And I thought that was it was just made for a really fascinating ride, taking the most simple elements of cooking food, of these gestures of what ultimately are gestures of love, right? Cooking food and preparing food, and having brief conversations about the choices of what kind of food. Do you want another angioplasty? I like that line a lot, right? You're not going to eat the ox tongue because you've already had a heart attack. Like we're going to make sure that you live a long, healthy life. All of the way she captured that on film, I thought was really special. I thought it was great. I can't wait to see more of her stuff.
I loved the moment where Roger's mom visits and she's staying in his place, and she's complaining from her bed. Can you turn it down? It's really loud. And he had kind of fallen asleep on the couch. And then she's asking, like, he starts looking at the paper. Do you have to turn the pages so loud? And he's trying to do it quietly. And she's just constantly complaining. She asks him something else. And what does he do? He brings some tea to her. And I loved this moment because he brings tea to her. He's like, I'm sorry, it's probably not it's some hot tea. It's probably not as good as what Ah Tao would have made for you, but here's some tea for you. Yeah. And she's like, oh, thanks. And she tastes it, and they kind of smile at each other. And then he leaves the room and shuts the door. I was like, God, that was a brilliant way to not piss mom off just by shutting her door. He's going to bring her something, but then as he goes, he just kind of quietly shuts the door. I'm like, that was really beautiful. One of the most clever things that I've seen, where he can kind of separate himself from his mother in a way where he's not doing anything offensive. I just loved that moment.
Well, and I think you can make the case, the way Fu Li Wang as Roger's mother plays that scene, that she knows she's being played a little bit, right? As soon as he brings up Ah Tao's tea, they have kind of a knowing exchange that he's trying to make her bedtime more peaceful, just the way Ah Tao would when he was acting up as a child or something like that. I felt like she knew it, and because he's so gentle with it, it was all right.
So she was dubbed, and I was wondering, I know there are a number of different kind of languages that we see spoken throughout the film. We have moments where Ah Tao tries to talk to somebody at the premiere party, but they don't speak Mandarin, and so it's like all these different languages that were kind of thrust out. But it was interesting to see that the actress who played Mom must have just spoken a different language, and they had her do her best, and then they just dubbed her later. And one of those things that I notice sometimes, and when it's an Italian film and everybody's getting dubbed, I don't mind it so much, but it always throws me off a little bit where it's just the one person who's getting dubbed. It's like the lips are never quite right, but it was all right.
Yeah. Well, and I think it was Cantonese. It was the other way, because the whole movie was in Cantonese.
Sure.
And I wonder if she spoke Mandarin, and that was an issue and like why after we've just watched this movie, Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara, if you don't mind me saying, that is so just sort of flamboyant with its use of multiple languages. It's a little bit jarring to see them go the extra mile to dub one character. Maybe others, I wasn't paying that close attention, but you're right. She did stand out to me.
Yeah. There were a couple questions that I had that I just wasn't sure. There was a moment where, and it was right after Ah Tao first kind of moves into the place, and I thought literally that it was the middle of the night and she was breaking out. Like, that's the sense that the scene plays as. And she goes into a room and she stuffs tissues up her nose. What was going on there?
I have no idea.
I was like, is this like the morgue? Like, where are we here? Like, I just could not for the life of me figure out what was happening, because it's the same room she goes through later where we end up finding out that the mom of the brother and sister ends up collapsing before she gets taken out. But nobody was plugging their nose at that point. So I didn't understand. And I was like, am I missing something here? So you didn't get it either.
Well, the only thing I thought about was that, maybe just the smell of the elderly community is different than she is accustomed to. And she was having trouble adjusting to it because, there's a lot going on in those places, and maybe it just didn't smell great. But I do think that actually gets to a couple of points of just straight up filmmaking that I thought were interesting choices in the movie. And one was that one where I thought she was going to escape. That was a nice little sort of visual setup, and that she wasn't. There was another one where, they showed close-ups of bag packing and all kinds of stuff, that ultimately is somebody else saying, I'm getting out of here, and it gives Uncle Kin an opportunity to come and care for them. And both times that she has her strokes, the way it was shot made it feel very much like she was dead. That it was, both times I was completely surprised that they didn't, that she was alive still. And it worked for me ultimately, but those sort of emotional, like, it made it more of an emotional roller coaster, that little dopamine jolt of, oh my God, I have to feel something now. Oh wait, no, I don't. It's okay. She's still alive. That was wicked tricksy, Ann Hui.
I thought likely how it feels when somebody that you love is going through that. It's like, oh my God, they just died. Oh no, they're actually alive. Like, you just don't know. And it's that fear that you go through in those moments of did I just lose this person?
Yeah.
So
totally. Yeah.
What did you think of Roger's decision at the end when she's in the hospital and he leaves her to die alone, and says, just, if she dies while I'm gone, just put her in the morgue? Like, what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up, because doesn't like paint that Roger in that place of like, oh, I really, maybe he hasn't learned anything at all. Although I don't know what I would have done any differently. I found myself sort of ruminating on that. Like, it's absolutely in character for Roger not to stick around. But would I have done anything different? I don't know.
It's a tricky thing. Like, I saw him, he was with her all that time, but this was totally different. She was unconscious. Like, she was not coming out of this place that she was in, likely, was in the hospital's version of hospice care. They had her on medicine, they had her on machines. She was just kind of there but not there, and he would go in and he would hold her hand and he would be there with her and stuff, but she wasn't. It's not like when she was with the priest the previous time. It wasn't that sort of time. Like, she just wasn't there. And so I was torn. Like, gosh, what do you do? I mean, he was putting off this production that he needed to get back to. He needed to fly back over to the mainland so that he could jump in onto this production for a week before he could get back. And so I don't know. It was a tricky decision, I guess, to have to make for anybody.
Well, and you sort of get the sense that statement at the end, he is saying, like, I've been sort of prepared for this, or preparing for this, for a long time. Like, we've been at the end before, and now the reality is set in that there's nothing more I can do. There's nothing more we can do. We're just waiting.
They already kind of had their goodbyes. Like, she had her second stroke. I mean, he was pushing her around in a wheelchair, strapped in. Like, she had to be strapped into the wheelchair to push her around. Yeah, I felt like she was ready to go. And I felt like he had been with her enough to know that she was ready now. And that this was like, she wasn't coming back. He said his goodbyes. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
It's a tough one though. It's a tough decision to have to make. So I feel like he still did learn and grow, but it is one of those difficult things where you have to hit a point where it's like, I have to move on.
Well, and again, so much of this, I think, comes from a place of like cultural interpretation or cultural relationship with death, that it's hard for me to rationalize his actions because there is a lot tied up, I think, in, death in China and in that part of China and that family and stuff that I just, same way I don't eat a lot of ox tongue, I also don't have the same relationship with death and dying that they do.
What did you think of the very last bit? So she's gone. There was the funeral. We see him walking back to his place. He looks up to his flat. The lights are on. We cut inside and we see her kind of bustling about in there and almost like she's going to hide from him or something. Any thoughts on the way that was played? And then this was also over the credits, essentially.
Yeah, it was over the credits. I don't know. I sort of wrote that, like, until you brought it up, I had totally forgotten that it existed in the thing. I thought it was weird. I didn't care for it. Like, what is it saying? That she is just sort of, her spirit is always going to be there and she'll always be watching? That is a like legit anxiety for me, that my, long dead grandmother watches me when I, do stuff I shouldn't do. Like, okay, sure. I just ate a whole bag of Oreo cookies and you might have seen me pick my nose. What do you want from me, Grandma? Like, that's the kind of stuff that just really causes me a fit. So I don't know. Did it work for you?
I suppose it was one of those moments where it's like the end of Thelma and Louise, where, you see memory moments of them driving around and stuff. And so I felt like it was more just him remembering the good moments of her and like the feeling that he had when he was coming home and she was there and things like that. So I felt like it was just his memories and his mind creating those things, and less thinking that her spirit lives on, more just remembering the good times or remembering the times period and reminding himself that, he might not have been focusing on them at all, but they still made them special to him.
I was just going to say that, like, remembering the good times of, when she would make me food and then stay out of the way.
And I would ignore her, right?
It's a really charming relationship that they captured on film.
Oh, my. Yeah, so Ann Hui, she co-wrote this, I believe, with Roger Lee, who came up with the story. And the way that it sounds like, he started developing these fragments of this, and she liked it and said, keep developing this until it was enough for a screenplay for them to kind of work on together and kind of develop, which I thought was really cool. And interestingly, they picked Andy Lau and Deannie Ip because Ip is actually Andy Lau's godmother, which I thought was fantastic. And they had acted a number of times before. And I think this was their return to act together after like 25 years or something apart, like they hadn't acted together in all that time. And so it was a nice time, a nice opportunity for the two of them to get together and, work in the same film again, which is, I thought that was very cool.
I did too. And I felt like their relationship, there was nothing about their relationship in this movie that was inauthentic at all. I think just as performers, they were really, really great together. And she is superlative. I so enjoyed everything she did on screen.
Yeah, she plays it well. I had just a wonderful time with both of them. I thought the two of them really brought a lot of charm, and you could feel their connection. And that's what I think worked so well in this film, is that I always felt like there was an authentic history between the two of them. And like those moments also, like when he's talking to his sister and the whole story about the Coke and stuff. I'm like, all of that just felt so honest and real. Like I just bought all of it. It's great.
I did too. I mean, I don't have a sister, so I don't really know if that was legit. You would know better than me.
Well, I wouldn't be able to compare because my parents were never into giving either of us Cokes. So,
oh, right. No, it was all kombucha, I'll bet. You're a big kombucha head.
I don't think kombucha was a thing back then. But oh, my. All right. Any last thoughts about this one before we kind of move on to the rest of it?
Let's power through.
All right. Well, we will be right back, everybody. But first, our credits.
The next reel is a production of True Story FM, engineering by Andy Nelson, music by Balloon Planet, Oriel Novella, and Eli Catlin. Andy usually finds all the stats for the awards and numbers at the-numbers.com, boxofficemojo.com, imdb.com, and wikipedia.org. Find the show at truestory.fm. And if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, please consider doing that for our show. How to do it award season, Andy.
This film did well for itself, particularly in the awards over in Asia. This had 38 wins, 27 other nominations. It actually debuted at the Venice International Film Festival, where Ann Hui and the film won the Equal Opportunity Award, the Gianni Astre Award, the Nazareno Taddei Award, and it received an honorable mention for the Cygnus Award. Also, Deannie Ip won the Volpe Cup for Best Actress, and she was actually the first Hong Konger to do so, which is pretty cool. The film also was nominated for the Golden Lion, but Ann Hui lost that to the film Faust. At the Asian Film Awards, again, Deannie Ip won Best Actress and was the first Hong Konger to win this award as well. And Andy Lau won the Favored Actor, which is kind of the people's choice. Ann Hui also became the first woman to win a Lifetime Achievement Award at the Asian Film Awards. It was also nominated for Best Actor, but Lau lost to Donnie Damara in Lovely Man. And Deannie Ip was nominated for Favored Actress, but lost to Eugenie Domingo in Woman in the Septic Tank, which is quite the title. I know. At the Hong Kong Film Awards, it won Best Picture, Best Director, Best Screenplay, Best Actor, and Best Actress. Ann Hui has now won that director award 4 times more than any other director. And Ip was actually the oldest actress to win the award. She was 64 at the time she won the award. Paul Chun, who played Uncle Kin, he was nominated for supporting actor, but lost to Hoi Pang Lo in Life Without Principle. And Hai Lu Chin was nominated for supporting actress. She was the head of the nursing center. She lost to Hang Xuan So in Life Without Principle. And cinematography lost to the film Dragon. And at the Hong Kong Film Critic Society Awards, won Best Actress in Film, nominated Hai Lu Chin for actress, but she lost to Ip. And Hui lost director to Wen Jiang for Let the Bullets Fly, and they lost the screenplay to Life Without Principle. So, but I mean, still, 38 wins overall. They did a really good job with this film. It struck a chord with people.
I would love to see the back-to-back, like, double feature of A Simple Life and Let the Bullets Fly. I wonder where the similarities are in that movie, those two movies. All right, how to do at the box office.
Hui's film cost 30 million yen, or $5.4 million, which is $6.2 million in today's dollars. The movie premiered, as I said, at the Venice International Film Festival, then opened in Hong Kong September 23rd, 2011. It continued a slow festival and theatrical release, eventually opening in limited release in the U.S. on April 13th, 2012, opposite The Three Stooges, Cabin in the Woods, and Lockout. The movie would go on to earn $192,000 domestically and just over $6 million internationally for a total gross of just over $7 million in today's dollars. That lands the film with an adjusted profit per finished minute of $7.7 thousand.
All right, well, that's something. It's nice to see a small sort of adult film that actually
an adult film.
Makes some money every minute. Not an adult film, but a film for, about...
That's a totally different nursing home story.
Yeah, it's a very different nursing home story. All right. I loved it. I thought it was a great way to almost kick off our Ann Hui series and almost wrap up our 10-year anniversary series. And curse you, Arthur Christmas, for ruining this segue. But it was a great watch.
Yeah, it was definitely a great film. I really enjoyed it. And just as a note, I didn't have this information yet, but I'll just say it now. This film marked the 10th collaboration between Ip and Lau. They first started together in The Unwritten Law in 1985.
Well, was this the last collaboration between Ip and Lau?
I don't have that information in front of me either. I wish that I did.
I guess we'll never know.
Oh, and last little bit of information. Ann Hui, as I said, she started making films in the late 70s. She actually was considering retiring and having this be her last film. However, the film was so successful that she changed her mind and has been working steadily since. So great to know that this film kind of pushed her to keep going.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
All right. Well, it was a great film. I am thrilled that we added it to our list of films that we've talked about. And yeah, I guess that's it. So we'll be right back for our ratings. But first, here is the trailer for next week's movie, Arthur Christmas.
Dear Santa, my friend doesn't believe in you, but I think you are real. But how do you get around all the children in the world in one night?
Dear Gwen, do believe in Santa. He is real.
If you've ever wondered how it could all be true, the mystery will finally be revealed.
Operation Santa Claus is coming to town.
Go, go!
Engage rooftops. Ho, ho, ho.
Drop time 18.14 seconds per household.
Let's pick this up, people. Mission accomplished!
What happened for going down the chimney? Never did me any.
From Sony Pictures Animation and Aardman, meet the family who makes Christmas happen.
Here's to me, doing an even better job next year.
Santa's the boss.
That turkey did more than him.
Steve's the brains.
Revised drop time to 14.13 seconds.
And I'd love an espresso.
And then there's Arthur.
I just want it to be perfect for every kid.
But this Christmas,
There's been a glitch. Oh dear.
there's one small problem.
A child's been missed!
You want to wake up the whole North Pole?
Good idea! A child's been missed!
Arthur! Who cares about one single child?
She'll think she's the one kid in the whole world that Santa doesn't care about.
Do you know, Arthur, there is a way.
Well,
You're coming too, lad.
Me? On that? Up there? Pulled by them?
Dasher, Dancer. What are the others called? I could never ruddy remember. Bambi?
I'm not really good with big animals.
This November, the last person anyone believed in
Sir, why is Arthur out there?
is the only one
Reporting for duty, sir.
Stowaway.
who can save the holiday.
just stand back.
It doesn't matter how we got here. Wow! As long as she still believes.
Arthur Christmas.
How do you think he's,
Fine.
No child left behind!
All right, Andy. Let's letterbox it. Did I get it right? Did you come in at 4 stars?
This is a tricky one because it's one of those quiet films that you watch and go, okay. But it's been sitting with me, and I have been really kind of stewing on it a bit since I watched it and trying to gauge where I feel with the way that the story, like the way that it unfolded and where it took me. I'm torn between 4 and 4.5 stars. I think I'm going to go 4, but it could be something that moves up later in life.
Wow. Okay. I'm with you on most of it. Like, I think you said all the things that I would say, but you came in probably a star too high. If he were at 4.5, it'd be a star too. I think I could probably land at 3.5 stars and be really happy with that. There were moments that were enormously emotionally effective to me. The performances were all great. I really like their relationships. We've said it all. And I also think that I could very well be done watching this movie. I don't know that I'm going to come back to it. There are a lot of movies to watch. And so, I might just have to watch Red Notice again. Kidding. So I think I'm at 3.5 stars, and and we'll see. We'll see if that sticks.
Is there a heart?
Oh yeah, sure.
3.5 and a heart? Okay.
Yeah, I'll give it a heart. Yeah, absolutely. Give it a heart. It was good. It was fine.
Okay. Well, that's where we sit, everybody. What did you think about A Simple Life? We want to know. Hop into the Show Talk channel over in our Discord community, where we will be talking about this film this week.
When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Letterboxd giveth, Andrew.
As Letterboxd always doeth.
Oh, people like this movie. And also some people get it confused with Paris Hilton. Ugh, gross. I have a 4-star from Invincible Asia from June 4th, 2017, that I just think it's sweet and it captures a lot of what we've just talked about. Invincible Asia says, an absolutely beautiful film that loves and respects its characters and gives Deannie Ip and Andy Lau all the space and opportunity they need to make this something special. Hardly has aging been depicted as graceful yet simple and full of warmth as here.
That's lovely.
Yeah, very sweet. That's very sweet. What do you got?
Well, I have a 4-star by Cohen, who has this to say. I hope Andy Lau will be there to take care of me when I'm old.
A little bit. I do too.
Yeah, I think we all do, really.
I think we all do, a little bit. Thanks, Letterboxd. Andy, it's hard to believe we've been having weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
Oh, you're telling me. Producing this show week after week is so much fun, but it does require a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
The Originals page at thenextreel.com/originals has links to purchase the source material behind our adapted film discussions. Your purchases there help support the show at no extra cost.
For the entirety of season 11, we featured films directed by women.
The only exceptions were some of our member bonus episodes.
We talked about The Lure for our horror debuts series, which is a very loose adaptation of The Little Mermaid by Hans Christian Andersen.
Definitely miles from the Disney versions.
For our 10-year anniversary series, we covered We Need to Talk About Kevin, taken from the Lionel Shriver novel.
Man, that was brilliant.
And horrifying.
Yeah. The Journalist series included Merrily We Go to Hell and The Weight of Water, adapted from Anita Shreve's bestseller.
We filled some gaps in previous series with member bonus episodes on adaptations like Malcolm X, Mr. Blandings Builds His Dream House, Cactus Flower, Wild at Heart, Life Force, and The Blues Brothers.
Our John Hurd series looked at a trio of adaptations: Chilly Scenes of Winter from the novel by Ann Beatty, Awakenings based on Oliver Sacks' nonfiction book, and Rambling Rose adapted from the Calder Willingham novel.
2 films in our coming-of-age debut series were adapted from books: The Virgin Suicides from Jeffrey Eugenides and The Diary of a Teenage Girl, Phoebe Glockner's graphic novel.
We had Queen of Katwe for our sports series based on Tim Crothers' nonfiction book.
And Clueless kicked off our 90s comedy series, loosely adapted from Jane Austen's Emma.
It totally took place in the 90s, though. Find all of these books and more adaptations on our Originals page at thenextreel.com/originals.
Start your next read from the movies we've covered. Visit thenextreel.com/originals today.